Hello, I'm Matthew Pfeiffer. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Toxic to Triumph. In this week's episode, I'm going to be talking about the devaluation phase and how that plays such a major role in this narcissistic and toxic cycle of abuse. Looking forward to having this conversation with you, and I will speak to you soon. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Christmas time. One of the most popular gifts around this time is a phone. Last week I used a phone as an example of what the narcissist or what the toxic person does in the idealization phase and how they idealize you and how they treat you like a possession, how they look at you like a possession. Well, in the devaluation phase, I'm gonna stick with that example. I'm gonna stick with that picture. So a lot of you currently have a phone, but it may not be as shiny as what it was in the beginning. It may be a little bit slower than what it was in the beginning. The battery may not last as long as it did in the beginning. It may now have a few chips and a few cracks and a few scratches to it. You might keep it in the case, you might not. Why would you do that? Why is that different now than what it was in the beginning? Because it doesn't hold its value the way that it did when you very first got it. When you very first got it, you loved it. I'm sure you got insurance on it. You may have purchased the perfect case and the screensavers. It's not that way anymore because the phone doesn't hold its value the way that it did because it's a little bit slower. There's a new phone out there. There's new toys. There's new gadgets. There's new features out there that your current phone may or may not be able to do, but it's just not new anymore. It's not shiny anymore. It's not fun anymore. It's just a thing, right? It still belongs to you, but it doesn't have its swag anymore, right? You're ready for the next new toy. I can use a car as an example too. When you very first get a car, you wash it every other day, or you take pictures of it. You love it. After a couple of months, maybe after a couple of years, you might go a couple of extra 1,000 miles or so before you get an oil change. You may not worry as much about vacuuming it out, right? It doesn't hold its value the way that it did before. This is the same exact way that a narcissist or toxic person views you. In the beginning, they placed you on a pedestal. You were the nice, shiny, new toy. And there was intent there because they wanted to place their hooks in you. We talked about this in the idealization phase where their goal was to make you feel like you guys were soulmates if this is a romantic relationship. Like they're the best mother in the world if this is a family dynamic, or the best father in the world if this is a family dynamic. The best boss in the world if this is a workplace dynamic. The cycle of abuse can go across the board towards any relationship. This isn't just romantic, but I'm going to use a romantic relationship as an example. So after a while, once they start to devalue you, and once that idealization phase is over, the same way that you have no problem if you drop your phone, or if you scrape it up a little bit, it's the same exact way with you. If you don't perform the way that the narcissist or the toxic person expects for you to, then you have a price to pay. That price can come in the form of silent treatment, which we'll talk about in another episode, and why that's a narcissist go-to thing. It may come in the form of gaslighting, if you call them out on a lie or on a situation. It can come in the form of physical abuse. It can come in the form of financial abuse. The reason why is because they view you, once again, as a possession, not as a person, right? So everything that you do in your life is for them. The same way that your phone, everything that you've uploaded and downloaded, all the apps are all personalized specifically for you. Well, you, in their mind, are personalized for them. You now need to put them, in their minds, on a pedestal. However, this is a little bit different. You will never meet their quote-unquote expectations. So when you don't, you're going to have a price to pay. This can become very torturous to you, to the victim, because your main goal is to try to get this relationship back to the idealization phase, back to where everything was great and everything was good, when you were cooking dinner every night, when you're hanging out, and when the love bombing was happening, right? Even if you had a quarter or a half of what that was, you would take it. Problem is that it's never going to get back there again. You can work as much as you want, you can try as hard as you want, and that's exactly what they want. They want you to work, and they want you to try to obtain these goals that are unattainable, to try to get back to the idealization phase, but they have no intent on getting back to the idealization phase. Their intent is for you to keep working and for you to keep revolving your life and continue to sacrifice your life, continue to sacrifice your happiness, continue to sacrifice your financial status for them. During the devaluation phase, if and when you become ready to leave, and we'll talk about the discard phase more likely next week, if you ever get to the point where you're ready to leave, they will show you just enough hints of the idealization phase just to keep you around. This is why it becomes very problematic on whether or not you want to leave a relationship or not, because you see the hints of the idealization phase. And you hear people say this all the time. I quote unquote, I see their potential. You hear people say that all the time. We have so much potential. However, I want to caution you with the whole potential talk. There's a big difference between potential and pattern. And despite how much potential you may have with a person, or how much potential a relationship has, pay attention to the pattern that the relationship actually is showing. They're showing the devaluation phase with some discard and going back to the idealization phase or to the love bombing phase. That's the true pattern of what the relationship actually is. And if that's the case, you are in an abusive relationship. And regardless of the hints and the times that the love bombing is happening, eventually the discard and the devaluation phase are still going to be coming back around, and you're going to stay in this cycle no matter what. In this phase, it's a no-win situation once you start to see this, right? And a lot of times people will try to put their foot down. They'll say, I'm just gonna stand up for myself to this person, right? And good for you. I think that you should stand up for yourself to anyone. However, it doesn't work with them. They have no intent on backing down. They have no intent on compromising, right? It's their way or their highway. And the first thing that they're going to do is bring up the idealization phase. What are you going to do? You're going to leave? And this is them talking. Do you not remember how I treated you in the beginning? Do you not remember the good trips that we went on? Who are you going to find that's going to take you on the trips that we've gone on? Who are you going to find that's going to take you out on the dates that we've been on? Who are you going to find that's going to treat you the way that I do? In a family dynamic, I'm your mother, I'm your father. Why would you treat me like this? Why would you talk to me like this? And that's where it becomes problematic, because as you start to stand up for yourself and as you start to speak up for yourself, they then turn it around and play victim. And this is where it becomes very problematic. They play victim, and in certain situations, and we'll talk about this in another episode, but reactive abuse can begin to happen, where you end up abusing them out of the reaction of them pressing your buttons. Then they play victim. Then they make you feel like it's all your fault, like you're the problem, when in all reality it's them being manipulative, them gaslighting, them using what you've done as a ploy and as a mechanism and as a form of manipulation to make you feel like you're the problem. Well, guess what? If you feel like you're the problem, you're going to work that much harder to try to get the relationship back to where it was in the beginning. But it's never going to get there. They have no intent on it getting back there, because guess what? If it went back there, they would have to be the ones to do the work. And they're not going to. They want you to be the one to do all the work. So I'm going to stick with my analogy of the phone. So after a while, once again, when your phone isn't as new, isn't as shiny, once it has a few chips in it, once it has a few cracks in it, once it's not performing the way that it used to, it's a little bit slower, the battery doesn't charge the way that it used to, it doesn't hold the charge the way that it used to, you know that it's time for an upgrade, because clearly it couldn't be your problem in the mind of a narcissist. It has to be the problem of the phone. So guess what? It's time for a new phone, which we will talk about in the discard phase next week. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Matthew Pfeiffer. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I can be found at Matt Pfeiffer Coaching on Instagram, Matt Pfeiffer Coaching on Facebook. And until then, I will see you next week. Listen to the next episode on Discard next Monday. Thank you.
To the sky, spread your wings wide, show the world you can fly, baby. Show the world you can fly, show the world you can fly, baby. Dream big, keep your head to the sky. Spread your wings wide, show the world you can fly, baby. Show the world you can fly, yeah. Show the world you can fly. Dream big, keep your head to the sky. Spread your wings wide, show the world you can fly, baby. Show the world